Your cat has been watching you longer and way more carefully than you probably realize. They're not just glancing at you. They're not just, being curious. They are actively running these quiet little experiments on you. Welcome to this explainer where we're going to completely pull back the curtain on the fascinating feline mind, testing you. Take a second and really let that sink in. Every single day in your own house, you are being tested. Okay, let's dive right into this, because it's incredibly fascinating. In all these small ways that you've probably just brushed off as, oh, that's just weird cat behavior, your cat has actually been running calculated psychological experiments. They're constantly checking how you react, what you allow them to get away with, and honestly, whether you're safe to be around. By the time we finish up here today, I promise you, you're going to look at your pet completely differently. All right, so let's start with phase 1, gauging your safety. This first phase is really all about how a cat assesses immediate physical threats, kind of calibrating their feeling of safety in your shared environment. Now, you've almost certainly seen your cat do this and thought, oh, that's just a cute, sleepy little moment. But the slow blink, it's actually a threat and trust calibration mechanism. See, out in the wild, direct eye contact is a massive threat signal between animals. So when your cat locks eyes with you and then slowly closes them, they're running a very specific test. They're asking, will you stare aggressively like a predator, or are you going to prove that you're safe? And the grading rubric for this test is literally pass or fail. If you slow blink right back at them, boom, you pass. Your cat immediately registers you as non-threatening and completely trustworthy. But if you just stare blankly without blinking back, you fail. And over time, staring without blinking actually makes them so much more cautious around you, even if you meant absolutely nothing by it. Next up is what we call the slow approach test. Have you ever noticed when your cat is unsure about something, maybe a new guest, a weird object, or a strange sound? They do this exact sequence. They get super low to the ground, they stop every few steps, and they glance back at you. Well, what's really interesting here is that glance back is not random at all. They're actively testing your emotional state to calibrate their own anxiety. If you're chilling and staying calm, they usually relax almost immediately. But if you tense up or react nervously, they completely mirror that anxiety. You are quite literally their safety barometer. Which brings us to phase 2, mapping the boundaries. Now, this is where the psychological testing really escalates from just basic physical safety to testing actual cause and effect. They're figuring out exactly where your psychological limits are. Let's look at the classic knock it off the table test. We've all been there, right? When your cat nudges a cup off a shelf and just watches it fall, they aren't just being a jerk. They are mapping out your reactions. If you jump up or yell or make a big fuss, the cat's conclusion is simple. Okay, this action gets a really strong reaction. But if you just ignore it calmly, well, they file that away too. Over weeks and months, they're quietly mapping out exactly what gets your attention, and then they tweak their behavior based entirely on those results. And then we have the ignore you on purpose test. You know the one. You call their name, they look dead at you, and then they just walk away. Our immediate human assumption is, wow, what disrespect. But the reality? It's a boundary test of your control. So the crucial point to understand here is that cats are highly, highly attuned to autonomy. By ignoring you, they're testing whether you're going to force an interaction, like chasing them down and picking them up, or whether you'll actually respect their choice. Interestingly, cats whose independence is respected actually become way more responsive over time. So it isn't defiance at all. It's literally just a boundary check. All right, moving on to phase 3, testing your trust. We're escalating now into the absolute deepest level of feline psychology. The behaviors in this phase, they might seem a bit aloof or confusing at first glance, but they're actually very vulnerable pleas for reassurance. Have you ever had your cat pull the disappearing act? Like they just completely vanish for a few hours, and then boom, they reappear like absolutely nothing happened. Now, sure, sometimes it's just a really good nap in a hidden spot, but cats also do this deliberately to test their place in the house, especially if they're feeling a bit unsure. Maybe you just moved, got a new pet, or even just changed up your daily schedule. Will you look for them? Will you call their name out? They're checking to see if they're still a priority to you. Look, super secure cats usually don't need to test this very often, but a cat who's feeling a little insecure, they will literally hide just to see if you care enough to go find them. Then we have the vulnerable position test. You'll see them rolling onto their back, completely exposing their soft belly, or maybe sleeping stretched all the way out in the middle of a busy room instead of tucked away safely in a corner. And this brilliantly illustrates how cats use these highly, highly vulnerable physical positions as ongoing, repeated tests of trust. Every single time they do this and nothing bad happens, it reinforces their mental map. Okay, this environment is safe and this person is safe. And let's look at the food refusal test. Now, it might just look like your cat is suddenly being a super picky eater for no reason, but it's actually an instinctual way of probing for stability and resources. Occasionally turning their nose up at their completely normal, everyday food, that's not human-style manipulation. It's a test. They use this a lot in multi-pet households or after a routine change, just to check if they're going to get extra attention, a different food option, or some much-needed reassurance from you. Which leads us to phase 4, the ultimate question. This brings us to the absolute climax of our explainer. There's this massive, elegantly complex psychological engine operating right beneath all these everyday behaviors we've unpacked today. But you gotta remember, none of these tests mean your cat is being difficult or dramatic or disloyal. You see, unlike dogs, cats just do not operate on blind obedience. They operate by constantly reading your reactions, calibrating their trust levels, and continuously figuring out exactly where they stand in their relationship with you. And that's because every single test your cat runs on you is essentially asking this one core internal monologue. Are you safe? Can I trust you? Do I matter here? That right there is the emotional punch hidden behind every single slow blink, every knocked over water glass, and every single time they flop over and show you their belly. So let's look at how you actually answer yes to those deep, instinctual questions. You do it through totally calm reactions, fully respected boundaries, and just a really steady presence in their lives. And the absolutely beautiful thing here is, the more consistently you answer yes through your behavior, the more secure your cat becomes. And as a result, they'll actually need to run fewer and fewer tests on you. So the very next time your cat just sits there, staring at you from across the room, I want you to ask yourself, which test did my cat run on me today? If this explainer completely shifted how you look at your feline friend forever, make sure you subscribe so we can keep uncovering exactly what's going on inside those fascinating little minds of theirs. Thanks so much for joining me today. And hey, keep your eyes peeled for those quiet little experiments.